Hello everybody, here we are today with a really fun topic. This is an article that was released 2 days ago at the time of recording this, or when it's released, about Pierre-Luc Dubois and the reasons that he wanted out of Columbus and Winnipeg. So before we start, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So quickly, I will say I do not get paid by The Athletic. I just subscribe to The Athletic, so I'm not getting paid here to promote them. I just think they genuinely have good articles, and while I might have different opinions at times, I do think they provide a lot of articles maybe you wouldn't see. So with this, we are going to be talking about Pierre-Luc Dubois. Of course, at this point in his career, ended up being traded out of 2 markets, and a lot of talk has been made about why he wanted to leave and what exactly it means for him, and is he a difficult guy to deal with. So the first thing is, it seemed like in this article, Pierre-Luc Dubois wanted to stay in Columbus. He said in it basically he had thought about getting an extension with them, and it was just one of those situations with his age and where his contract was at. He knew it was going to be a little while away, so he was going to have to wait a little bit. But ironically, at the same time, while the Blue Jackets were doing good things and beating the Tampa Bay Lightning, the writing was kind of on the wall, where you see guys like Artemi Panarin, Sergei Bobrovsky, they would be testing free agency. He viewed that as a pivotal point in his career to say, these guys are obviously hockey players and great teammates, I'm assuming, from everything you hear. But in general, you look at this and you say, I am going to be seeing them make a decision for themselves, and this seems to be something I want to do for me. So again, wanted an extension with the Blue Jackets, realized probably wasn't going to happen then, but also saw these 2 players that had been in the league for a bit, kind of making a decision for themselves and what they wanted for their future. Now, this is probably where the Jackets wish things would have gone a little bit differently, as it was said by PLD, hey, I want an extension, but by the time it kind of came around to where things were going to have to happen, if it was going to be a long extension, whatever the case was going to be, he just kind of realized that what he wanted for himself and what the team had to offer wasn't really going to match up. Columbus was headed for a rebuild, or I think at this time was kind of like really at the point where things were starting to go downhill, and he wanted to play winning hockey. Those things don't really match up well. And if you're a young guy that wants a good payday and to be in a market that's good, being in a market that is suddenly, rocked by a downhill trend is not exactly what you want to see there. And I will say another thing that came out of this, though, was John Tortorella was not the problem here. Yes, myself included, thought that this was going to be the huge part of this storyline, and I think it's not too hard to find players that said that they didn't like playing under Torts, but from what this article said and what we saw from PLD, seems like he and Torts have a somewhat relationship outside of hockey, where they talk to each other, even though the fact that they are not on the same team. Of course, Torts is in Philly and now PLD is in LA, but he actually supposedly petitioned for Torts to be the head coach for Winnipeg when they were, moving on from their previous head coach. I think it was Paul Maurice at the time when they would have made that decision. So that is kind of interesting. I look at that and say, well, there are a few players that go out there and say, oh, I like Torts, but to have a player that has kind of been in his doghouse and has demanded a trade when we all thought it was going to be something related to Torts, him saying, no, I actually thought he was a good coach, kind of speaks to something we weren't all prepared for, which makes the story a little bit more interesting on why he wanted out of Columbus and Winnipeg. So now we know why he wanted out of Columbus. Essentially, was the big contract going to be there? Probably not. And was the team, going to be in a spot to contend? Definitely not. So he comes on over to Winnipeg, and I remember at the time a lot of people were saying he's never going to leave Winnipeg. His dad is an assistant coach for the Manitoba Moose. He loves to be there with his parents, and it does seem like from this article he enjoyed time with his family, seems to be pretty close to them. But for me, I don't know how everybody's relationship is with their family. Being close to your family doesn't necessarily mean you're going to stay wherever you're at. You could enjoy being around your family, but still want to be in a different situation. And that kind of seems like what was going on here. Things were going relatively well in Winnipeg in terms of making the playoffs and his arrival, and things were going well in the sense that his family was there and he was able to hang out with them a lot, ended up talking to a lot of fans and was really excited to be there, but kind of said that, in the long term, was he going to want to be there for 8 years? And he said something like, oh, I could see myself being happy 3 years from now, but what was going to be the long term? I kind of chalked that up to maybe you have a job where it's not bad and you actually do enjoy it, but you look in the mirror and you're going to work and you say, is this my dream job? Is this where I want to be forever? Winnipeg obviously wasn't, and there was a lot of talk about where he wanted to go. Montreal kind of seemed to be the way that he wanted to go, but then of course he ends up getting shipped off to LA, signs a big extension there, and now we kind of find out why LA was the right fit for him. So according to him, it seems relatively simple. The big attraction about LA is it almost feels like you're always on vacation. They ended up talking about how he took his mom to a restaurant. She got to see some celebrities from TV shows that she liked, and that was a kind of a cool thing for her. But in general, you go from Columbus to Winnipeg. I would say that while those places might be really fun at points in the year, Winnipeg especially might not be the most fun place to be come wintertime. And LA, of course, if you are somebody who likes to go out, if you're like somebody that enjoys the weather and stuff like that, probably the place to be year-round if you enjoy that warm weather, if you enjoy the nightlife. And you have to remember about him, he is still a pretty young guy. He probably does enjoy the nightlife a little bit. So here we are at this point. He basically said he understands that he is viewed as a difficult player, or will probably be seen as that by the media. But I think just kind of wanted to clear the air. He says in the thing that he's, still remembering things fondly from those markets. Columbus, he has some good memories. Winnipeg, of course, he has some good memories. But at the end of the day, he was looking out for himself and what he wanted for his long-term future. Again, if you're looking at your job and you're saying you enjoy it, but it's not your dream job, what are you really doing if you can't try to get the dream job? Supposedly, this is the dream job, to be with the Kings in LA. I don't really think there was much mention about the Kings specifically. Obviously, a team that's been able to make the playoffs regularly the past couple of years, but the market probably is ideal for him. And a lot of these guys will have houses, certain places in the country which are nice to visit year-round. Now you can kind of live in a house or an apartment or whatever year-round in a place that you kind of feel like is ideal. So we will see what comes out of all this. Doesn't seem like much will come out of all this. Just kind of a thing where it's a telltale of how everything kind of unfolded. And then we get to see a little bit more of PLD's side. Do I think everything is how he's saying it? I don't know, because obviously I wasn't there, but seems like things went relatively well. Again, Torts wasn't the issue, rebuilding Columbus. Winnipeg wasn't a bad place to be, but with the uncertainty possibly of all these guys and whether or not they would stay, the attraction of Montreal, considering his time in Quebec, and then the vacation aspect of LA, certainly some things that you would say played a factor in his decision. Also, the big contract wouldn't hurt too bad there. So yeah, he's living in California, and we will see if he demands another trade and what that story would be in that case, because I don't know too many other places that would be better than LA in terms of nightlife and weather. But anyway, what are your thoughts on this article? If you were able to read it, or what are your thoughts in general by what he had to say and what I kind of summarized. If you want to check out the article, I can't remember who wrote it. I'll leave it down below as well as the title. Anyway, everybody, please make sure to stay safe. Have a great night, and you go love hockey, all right? Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.